Okay, so this week, um, I've changed a few things online. And what I did is I'm going to share my screen with you guys so you can see what I have going on. Where is that one? Shoot, where'd it go? There we go. And I have opened up almost the rest of the semester. So we are currently going to start working on weldments. So with the weldment project, you are creating your own whatever. Some of the ideas that I have here are just a few things that we have. I mean, the deck, one of my students did a deck out of steel. Remember, this is a weldment, so we want to be able to weld it. A popular one, of course, is the tree stands for hunters. You determine how big and or small this is, but what you're going to create is you're going to create your design. So, and that design is going to contain the assembled part, and then you're going to have your bill of materials attached to it, so we know what size material you have and all of that good stuff, and then your welds that you're going to put on it. So this is an opportunity for you to actually use the software to create something that maybe that you may use later on, or in another way. I would have done a tree stand at your age. I know that when I was in GRCC, I built a fiberglass tree stand in plastics class, just because I wanted to be something useful. So if you come up with something that like, hey, I need to do this for home, for work, for another project, feel free. So this is just a chance for you to get out and use your own creative juices. So this project can take a long time or not. It's totally up to you. But because you have such a long time at home, and we're getting closer to the end of the semester, I have also opened up weeks 13 and 14. So in week 13, we have more practice tests. Practice number 8. Number 8 is an assembly. So you're going to have to model all these parts. Now, this was available in the other practice session if you went and looked, but now this is actually an assignment that you're going to turn in. So you actually have to model all of the parts in this assembly. They are not, let me zoom out a little bit, they are not predetermined for you, but I believe if we go down here, yep. Oh, you know what? Was I nice enough? By cracky, I did. I modeled them for you. So you can just download each one of those parts so that you can assemble it. Katie may be our only person who's going to have some issue with this because it's she has 2018. But if it's a problem, Katie, and I know you're not here in the meeting, send me an email and I can give you a step file that you can use for that assembly as well. So then there's a practice question number 5, which looks very similar to one of the test questions. And then there's another assembly practice. You're actually going to have to model these parts and assemble it using the proper information. Now, while we're speaking of assemblies, in the last assembly that we were working on in the practice section, was it practice tests? The rods and nope. Does anybody remember where we did the rods? Oh, was that week 8? Nope. Where was it? Where was our practice? Remember the rods, and we just did it because I just graded a bunch of them. Not 12. Let me do this. Turn on my editing so I can see more. Wasn't there. Was it in 10?
I think it was week 10.
Where was that, Michael? There it is.
Yeah, week 10.
Week 10. So So let's make sure that people can see that. Here we go. So there were people had some issues, and I had, for many of you, I sent back the coordinates for the rods and bracket. And some of you may have looked at it and said, well, dude, I did exactly what you did in your video. But what you're going to remember is that my video is not the same as the brackets and rod. The video I did was an example of how. I didn't want to do the whole problem for you. So some of the things that you have to make sure that when you're doing the brackets and rods, your center of gravity is going to change if your volume is different, if your material is different. So if you have, let's say that you made the rod out of brass and it was supposed to be zinc, that's going to change the mass of the property, or the mass property of that rod, which is going to change the center of gravity. So as you're looking at it going, well, man, why did my numbers different than yours? Make sure that you check your material, that you have the proper material and density, that your origin is in the correct location, because those two are the biggest reasons for the change. And I did see many of you who did have just the coordinates that I had in the video. But the video was just, and I think I state that in the beginning, that it's just an example. It's not the actual prior. I changed a couple of things, so I wanted you to go through it and figure out on your own and not just copy me through that. So make sure that you take a look at that, because as I looked at the CSWA results, one of the biggest problems that most people had were the assemblies. And that's the one thing we've done the least amount of work on, but that's what we're starting to focus on it now. So going back to our practice test for week 13, which I opened up for you, all of your parts here. So when you make your assembly, make sure you set your assembly to proper units. You know, so you got to make sure you got to come through here and make sure that, hey, we're in inch, pounds, and seconds instead of millimeters, so it's a little bit different. Make sure your decimal places are the same. Some of you had your decimal places at 3 and 4 decimal places in the rods, the brackets and rods, which changes your answer. And remember, the test is looking within 1%. So if you're off by a decimal point, that's going to change it more than a percentage point. So make sure that you have the correct decimals. Make sure that when you're setting your global variables, that those are accurate. And then, of course, make sure that you have the proper material. If you don't have those things, it just throws everything into, you know, a mess. So with that assembly, let's make sure that we're taking care of that issue. And then looking at week 14, in week 14, you are going to be doing a motion study and the assembly of your grasshopper engine. So I've done some learning myself over this break, and I found out a way for us to submit your assemblies from you to me, so I can see the whole assembly. So you'll see that if I go back to week 14 here, you'll see that I want your assignment as a step file, as a PDF, and as an AVI. And the AVI is going to be the motion study. So I've already done the motion study video here that's going to show you how to turn your engine on and make that baby run. But what I do want to show you is right now, here I have my Elmer's engine. And what I want to do is I want to be able to turn this in. And I want you to want me to be able to open up your file, be able to spin it over and take a look at it and make sure everything's where it should be, and that you don't have a flywheel on backwards, or you're missing a bolt or something like that. So I want to be able to manipulate it. Now, if you try to send me a step file, or excuse me, an assembly file, I could see the assembly for about 6 seconds, boom, and then it disappears. But what I found out through working with Mr. Estes, we were talking about pack and go and how that wasn't working at the college, but it worked great at home. What we can do is we can go up to File, and we can go to Save As. And then under the Save As, if we change from an assembly, we want to go to the step, and I don't know why the AP203 is the one, but that's the one that Mr. Estes suggested, and that's the one he liked. Oops, I picked the wrong one. And then once I save it, now I've already have this saved as a step file. But what we're looking over here is we're looking at the size of our parts here. And notice those look nice and neat here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a step file. And I don't remember which one it is. I think I've got the right one. Now, notice that all of my parts are gray. And if I look at my design tree, I can see that it's now in a step file. I can click on that, and here are all my parts, but what it did is it took all of my parts and turned them into step files, into pieces. Now, I can't move it like I normally would on an assembly, but now I can actually take a look at your part. I can measure, I can use all those tools. I just can't use it like a freeform assembly, but now I can see your whole entire part, and I can manipulate it as an assembly to see and make sure everything is where it should be. So that's a nice little tool that I just picked up on because I've never used step files before, but here they are. So a nice, easy way for us to be able to use step files to turn in the assembly. So to cover that again, we want to make sure that when we turn in our Grasshopper engine, we're gonna create a PDF of the engine. Now, what I would like for this PDF is I would like for you to create a drawing of it. Just take your Grasshopper engine and do a front view, top view, right side view, and then do an isometric view of it, and then send that to me as a PDF. So I'll have your AVI file, so I'll be able to see your Grasshopper engine move. I have the PDF, which will be you're going to create a drawing of your part. So I'll have that 3-view drawing with the isometric view. You don't have to put any dimensions or anything on it. It's just so those parts, so I can make any notes there. And then you'll send me that step file. And I'll edit this part here to make sure it says step file that matches what it says on the week 14, like it says here. So I'll add that in here and we're done. So those are the 3 files that you're going to turn in with the Grasshopper engine. So you have all the time you want. So if you want to bust this out in a week and that makes the end of the semester easy for you, fine. I'm just looking for you guys to continue to turn your work in to get things moving. So hopefully things are going well. I haven't heard a lot from many of you, although I've been getting lots of drawings and part files in, which has been nice. So I'm constantly grading on a daily basis. I think I only have like 10 things that I have to grade right now in this class. So things are going well there. But I would like to hear from you. Are there any problems, issues, questions, concerns that you are having that we need to address? No? None? All right. So that's what I have for this week. It's a pretty straightforward week. So remember, you got the weldment assembly that you're going to create your own. You create all the dimensions, all the material. You're doing everything. So it's kind of like your own self-guided project. For next week, which I'll cover again next week, we have the practice assignments for the CSWA test. And then you have your Elmer's engine. Once we have those things up, we're right up to the final exam, which is just the CSWA. And again, if you've already passed the CSWA, at that point, you're going to be done. So I'm going to give you access to the CSWA so that you can take that, and I'll have those codes out for that last week. So if we're looking at, I share my screen again, so you can see my calendar. So I have the CSWA being able to start taking that test on the 22nd. And they changed it from 30 days to 14 days. So I'm going to open up the CSWA starting on the 20th. So starting on the 20th, so 2 weeks from today, you can take that CSWA part 1, part 2 at any time that you want so that they're done. But I need to have them all in by the 29th. Now you guys are seeing on mine, there's 2 different exams because I have two sections of the 190. So anyway, so I would like to have them in this week so I can get things graded. So my grades are due out on May 1st. So I've got to grade all that stuff as well. All right. So the crickets are pretty loud. I can't hear much from you guys. So I think that we've covered everything. Nate, you have an X. What's that mean? No. Got to hit and hold your space bar to unmute yourself.
Yeah, you said, do you have any questions?
Oh, no question. That makes more sense. But I just saw that. So if you guys have no other questions, here's what we have for this week. Again, I'll cover everything week by week as we go through. We'll meet again next Monday at 11 o'clock so that we'll make sure we're on task and start turning stuff in, and we'll wrap this semester up. Okay. Summer schedule is open. We know it's all going to be online. I don't think much of that applies to many of you. I know that EG 110 is now going to go offered in the second 9 weeks, the second 7 weeks, not the first 7 weeks. Or it is both first and second. First 7 weeks with Mr. Merchant, second 7 weeks with myself if you're one of those people that need EG 110. All right. Hey, stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you guys next week. If you need anything, please get a hold of me. We'll Zoom in and we'll help you out with anything we can. All right. Take care, guys.